Hey everybody, Real Estate Ninja here. Let's talk today about 5 common mistakes new real estate investors make. These are 5 mistakes that could be any of us when we were all starting out. And if you think about it and you just put a little bit of thought, a little bit of time, a little bit of consideration into it, you do not have to make these mistakes. So let's start with number 1. Number 1 is not thoroughly researching properties that you're going to buy. You know, if you think about it, it's not only the properties, but it's also the markets. A lot of people decide, hey, I want to be a real estate investor, and they dive right in. They literally buy in the first market they look at. So they've got the money, they've got the credit, let's go for this, and they dive right in. They may have read a book or two, but they didn't take a lot of time to really vet the area. Some things that come to mind are failing to conduct proper due diligence on potential properties and neighborhoods. This is very, very vital. One way that you could do this is obviously going around and knocking on the door, asking people questions. Another way is doing a simple Google Earth search and looking into literally the backyards to seeing if there's broken down cars, trash. Also going around the neighborhood multiple times of the day to listen to the noise. What's the traffic flow like? You may show up and there be no vehicles and it seems quiet and peaceful. And then at night, all of a sudden there's 1,500 vehicles sitting around and there's people outside partying and drinking alcohol and chanting. You need to actually do your due diligence when it comes to this. Another thing is not understanding the local real estate market and trends. A lot of people don't understand the importance of looking at the local job market. What kind of industry is currently in that market and what is going on as far as the politics? Are companies getting upset and leaving? Are we seeing businesses go out of business? Is it hard to get good qualified labor to help employees? If that is the case in an area because of demographics or a myriad of different reasons, companies can close their doors and leave, and then you're left with tenants that don't have jobs. And that is very, very important. All right, number 2, over leveraging and taking on too much debt. So many times I see this where people get overzealous, they get excited, and the biggest thing is they get emotionally attached to a property that comes on the market. It seems like a smoking deal, or it's their dream or real estate investment property. It matches, it clicks all the boxes, but it's expensive. So they are using too much borrowed money to purchase the properties, and they're also not having enough cash reserves to cover unexpected expenses or vacancies. And one of the places that I see this happen the most is when you have properties that are, let's say, multifamily properties, where they are not individually metered. And that means usually you have to split the cost of gas, electricity, and so on with multiple tenants. And this can cause infighting and issues. And ultimately it leads to the landowner taking a brunt of the expenses because it's hard to tell who's using more or who's using less. Things like that you can see ahead of time that may cause you to go, that property's not for me. All right, let's talk about the third way. Underestimating the costs of owning and managing rental properties. I see this all the time. From someone that owned a property management company myself, a brokerage, it is very vital to understand what a professional can do and offer for you that you can't do because you don't have the time to do it or the know-how. I'll give you one example. Evictions. Evictions can be very expensive, very timely, and very stressful. And so sometimes it's better to leave it to the professionals. But so many times, new real estate investors, they look at those charges that a property management will charge between 5, 7, maybe even 10%. I've even seen higher at 11% a month, and they go, holy cow, I can't pay those. That's eating into my profit. And so they try and take on something themselves and they don't have any really good training or experience to do, and they find themselves taking on poor tenants and things like that. Now there's other things like not budgeting for the ongoing expenses, looking at how much vacancy, what's your vacancy rate? What was it like before? Not doing your due diligence during the actual due diligence process of buying the property in the first place, but then also looking at the general overall condition of the property. What's the roof condition like? Is it gonna need a new roof? Is it gonna need paint pretty soon? Things like that add up. And if you don't have the money set off the side, it can really come back to bite you if repairs need to be made in order to just get tenants in the door in the first place. And also something else is not having enough cash flow to cover these costs. If you buy the property wrong and you don't have enough cash flow, and then you especially don't have the money in the bank, you're really, really in trouble. Now let's talk about number 4. That is not having a clear set of goals or a strategy. So many people just go out and they buy real estate because like, hey, everybody else is buying real estate. It's going up in value or the cash flow is great. I want to become more independent, and they just do it. But they don't have well-defined goals and strategy. Not having a plan for how to acquire, manage, or exit properties, that's big. Another thing is not having specific or measurable goals for the investment. If you aren't hitting the goals that you set, well, then you're failing. And the other thing too is a lot of people, they'll set goals, they'll go ahead and achieve them, and then they don't stretch themselves and set higher goals. A lot of people I've heard like, oh, I'm just happy with 1 or I'm happy with 2. Well, the reason why it's because they're not doing a good job managing them, they're not bringing in solid cash flow, or they're not appreciating the way that they would like them to, because they bought the house or the apartment complex wrong. If they would have bought it properly and everything was going great, there would be no reason to stop at 1 or 2 properties. So usually it's a problem with the investor, not a problem with the property. All right, let's talk about number 5, and that is not seeking advice and guidance. I can't tell you how many times I have sought out the advice or guidance, taken them out to lunch or coffee of another real estate professional, whether it be a real estate agent, a property manager, or a real estate investor themselves. How many people actually dive into information that you can find on YouTube, on social media, in books? I mean, for heaven's sakes, we have no excuse. Today there's Audible. You can literally just listen to amazing real estate investors and just drive down the highway on your way to your day job, dreaming of the day that you buy enough real estate to be able to walk away from that day job. Seek out the advice of qualified people that have been around the block, people that know how hard this is, and the great easy loopholes to be able to avoid tragedy. Also, take into consideration legal professionals too. I saved $10,000 on my first home because I had my contract. I sent it to an attorney that specialized in real estate, and he pointed out a fee that was erroneous and said, you should have this taken off. And it literally was taken off in 15 minutes. Saved me $10,000, and it was literally a $250 consultation. So consider that. Guys, I hope you got something out of this. When you're buying real estate, it's nothing to be afraid of, but take these points into consideration and look at what would help you, mold you, teach you, so that you don't have to make mistakes that other people have made beforehand, and then this become a positive situation, and you go out and crush it, and don't stop at 1 or 2 rentals. Go get 10, go get 20, and live the life you've always wanted to live. Guys, I hope you got something out of this. The Real Estate Ninja is out.